Here in France, there's been a second government reshuffle in less than a month since Gabriel Attal was appointed as the country's youngest ever Prime Minister. This time, though, just a few tweaks to the cabinet, which tilts to the right, the most notable change being the replacement of Education Minister Amélie Oudéa-Castéra. AOC, as she is known in her inner circle, a former tennis pro, was on thin ice days after her double appointment as Sports and Education Minister after a number of controversies and gaffes came to light. Analysts say some by her own doing. We'll get a sense of that. We'll bring in fact, right now, Mark Perelman, who is our French political affairs editor. Mark, so we got a new broom sweeps clean in office for education at a busy time, but this replacement been a long time coming.
Yes, absolutely. This was supposed to be a second wave of announcements in the government. There were several ministers appointed nearly a month ago, and now we were just waiting for a list of junior ministers. But this got much more complicated because the new education minister went from gaffe to gaffe. She misspoke. She didn't explain exactly. There was a controversy about sending her kids to private schools, which was felt as an insult by public education teachers and unions. And then she gave explanation after explanation, despite being told by the Prime Minister to essentially shut up and work. And so her position, she couldn't stay there clearly. And so she was ousted yesterday night as Education Minister. She is not ousted from the government because she keeps the sports minister. In a year will be the Olympic Games. But nevertheless, she is replaced by Nicole Belloubet, who was Emmanuel Macron's first justice minister. She was ousted after a reshuffle a few years ago, not because of problems and so on, but she's brought back because she's seen as a steady hand, someone who will be able to talk to the world of education, where there are lots of problems. Teachers complain that they're not being paid enough, that they're not being considered enough. So they're hoping to turn this very stormy page of 1 month of a minister who's really been in dire straits and couldn't save her position.
So Emmanuel Macron, the president, wants to turn a new leaf, move forward with his big education plans. And people listening might think, well, an education minister whose children went to private school, why is that necessarily a big issue? But you hit upon a key issue there. It's about her explanation of it. I think in the first place, didn't she say this was because the Paris state school, it was about absenteeism amongst the teachers, which didn't turn out to be quite the case, it seems.
No, she was caught essentially lying because she said, I took my kids out of public schools because the teacher didn't show up enough. And actually, some reporters went and found the teacher of her youngest kid at the time, who said, No. I was there all the time. I remember perfectly the kid, the parents, and the parents decided to take her out of school because I wanted the kids to do the same class again because he was not mature enough. So she was caught essentially lying and adding insult to injury. This was seen as an assault on public education, which is sacred here in France, and as also a way of reviving some fights in the past between private education and public education, not something Emmanuel Macron needs at a time when his popularity is low and he's struggling with other issues. We've seen farmers protesting, and there are many other issues.
To that point, though, then what comes next? Because there are big reforms planned within schools, and also, we've got the European elections looming ahead. What does that mean for his party right now, where the government's heading?
Well, what also happened during those few weeks, which were supposed to be very, very standard, procedure to appoint junior ministers, was one of his key allies, the centrist leader François Bayrou, who really helped propel him to the Élysée Palace, was cleared, at least partially. There's an appeal from an investigation into possible misuse of European Parliament funds. And so he was seen as someone who would get an important ministry. However, the negotiations went awry, and François Bayrou blasted Emmanuel Macron. He said, he was going in the wrong direction. This was too much to the right. This was not what the essence of Emmanuel Macron when he was elected, neither left or right. So essentially saying that Emmanuel Macron was becoming a right-wing politician, that this was not acceptable. This is not a good omen because Emmanuel Macron, according to the polls, his party is not faring well in the forthcoming European Parliament election scheduled in June. And having cracks within his own ranks is not something you need. So this is a very, very complicated period. It took a lot of time for Emmanuel Macron to find a prime minister, a government. Now he has a full government. He's hoping that he will be able to turn the page and finally focus on reforms and the campaign for the upcoming parliament elections at the European level.